May I request all the delegates to kindly take their seats so that we can start the session on time? Thank you. तो मैं ठीक है Cool. Welcome back everyone to the day 2 of the FEE 2026 event. This year we convene under the theme Energy Efficiency as the Viksit Bharat. As India moves towards its commencement to Viksit Bharat 2047, energy efficiency has transitioned from a supporting role to a critical national resource that will power our social, economic competitiveness and climate resilience. As we begin to ensure the smooth coordination and smooth conduct of the proceedings, I would just request everyone to kindly put your mobile phones on silent mode. You can scan the QR code placed on the back of your badges to know more about the details. Today we have panel sessions parallel going on in both the halls, side hall and the main hall. So you can just scan the QR code, know about the sessions, and you can take your seats in the respective sessions. We would also request all the attendees to visit the exhibition booths located outside the hall and engage with the exhibits on the table. Before we proceed, we would like to acknowledge the unwavering support of our partners and sponsors who have made this event possible for us. We express our gratitude to our platinum sponsor, ABB and Schneider Electric, gold sponsor, Grand Force India, silver sponsor, Tabreed and Thermex India, session sponsors, Carrier, and our knowledge partner, the Energy Efficiency Movement and Kazam, and our outreach and network partners, GBCI, IIMA, Aishray, Netra, Rama, and Data. In next 5 minutes, we are about to commence the first thematic session of the day. So please take everyone please take your seats in the respective session of your interest. Thank you. So now we are commencing day 2 of our session with a session on transformative cooling framework, that is cooling as a service, rethinking how India delivers cooling. As India's cooling demand contributes to rise rapidly, a transition to performance-based cooling system is essential to enhance affordability, improve efficiency, and support the long-term sustainability. For this session, I would like to welcome our moderator, Mr. Piyush Sharma, Deputy Head of Engineering Efficiency Projects, GIS India, and our panelists, Mr. Arjun P. Gupta, Founder and CEO, Smart Joules, Mr. Amit Sahu, Head Sales, CBS, NWE Regions, Grand Force, Mr. Asim Goyal, General Manager, Business Development, Tabreed, India, Mr. Babu Panniselvam, Head of Innovation, Cooling, Thermex Limited, and Mr. Manjunath MD, Head Lifecycle Solution, Carrier HVAC. Now I would hand over the stage to Mr. Piyush for the panel discussion. Over to you, Piyush.
Thank you, and a very, very good morning and a warm welcome to everyone. And also we have a very distinguished panel over here from one of the leading institutions working in this space in the country, with a very for the moment topic, cooling as a service. But I think before we delve into the discussions, let us have a very quick understanding of cooling as a service from your perspective. So I think there is a Mentimeter, and I would request someone from the organizers to help me. Yeah, so there is a QR code already on the screen. So you can just scan using your mobile phones, and you'll have 4 options on how do you see cooling as a service. What's your opinion, or which of the lines, 4 sentences describes cooling as a service best for you? We can have maybe 60 seconds for that. Wow. Great. So I think the audience already have a very, very fair idea of what cooling as a service is. Actually, all the three sentences, in fact, all, the last sentence very aptly defines the cooling as a service. And cooling as a service, why it is very right at the moment. We have all the missions in place. We have the Viksit Bharat 2047, which says that the demand for energy will increase by almost 2 to 2.5 times. At the same time, we also have ICAP, which says that the demand for cooling will grow by 2037 by almost 8 times. So this shows the significance of cooling, how cooling is going to contribute to the peak electricity demand in the country. And by 2030, almost more than 50% of the cooling of the peak electricity demand is projected to come from the cooling space itself. And here in India, traditionally, we have been using the conventional model where the individuals own the AC, which have very weak in performance metrics, which have high upfront cost, and so on. And on one hand, we have a very new concept going on in India where the ownership is actually a shared model. Someone else is doing the generating the cooling things and maintaining the efficiency and everything, and then cooling is being built on as per use. So this again gives a very wide perspective of how things could be in the future in India, especially when we talk about cooling. And maybe at this point, I'll just stop and have an opinion of the panel on how they see cooling as a service from their perspective. So maybe 2 minutes each. Maybe.
Yeah, thanks. Good morning, everyone. So I think cooling as a service basically delivers 4 benefits to customers, clients, end users. One is quality, second is convenience, third is economy, and fourth is sustainability. These are 4 customer benefits that come from cooling as a service. In terms of quality, because a single company is in charge of design and execution and operations and maintenance, that service provider is able to give a much higher quality cooling system to the customer and agree to very, I would say, stringent service level agreements, which only an operations company or a facility management company or their own internal team would not be able to provide. Because they would think, somebody else has designed the facility, somebody else has executed the facility. How can I take responsibility for temperature and humidity and air changes? Because I didn't have the control. But now if you have a single service provider, that service provider can give much higher quality of cooling for long term to the end user. So that's a major benefit, which often does not get talked about. But certainly we have found that for some of our customers, it's more important than anything else. And if you consider environments like hospitals where we work a lot, that becomes really, really critical. So one is quality. Second is convenience. Of course, you have a single company throughout the life cycle of cooling, right? From conceptualization till many years into operations. So it saves the customer the trouble and the pain of having to deal with at least 15 different organizations in the life cycle, right? Different consultant, different contractor, different facility management company, different contracts with OEMs for CMCs, different water quality treatment, different consumables. So many different contracts are avoided. So you get a lot of convenience dealing with one company. Of course, the one that we all do understand is economy, and that's the fundamental driver. The life cycle cost of cooling is lower with cooling as a service business models, mostly because the service provider will definitely take care of energy efficiency, and that's the highest cost of ownership. So these three things, and then sustainability, of course, lowest energy consumption, highest sustainability or lowest greenhouse gas impact. So these are the four benefits we continue to focus on and talk about with our clients. And different clients have different emphasis on these benefits. Some people will care more about quality, somebody else will care more about economy, somebody else will care more about convenience. But the model brings all four, and you have to find what the customers are more interested in.
Hi, Arjun. Rightly pointed, a lot of points are already covered. I still would like to add something that we normally look at from the sellers and buyers point of view things, and we normally try to make it a win-win situation. But probably this is a time when we need to take a step ahead and we need to add another win. That is for the nature probably. And that's where cooling as a service model, or if we are looking to scale it up to the district cooling part, that feature comes in ultimately. So this is not just a deal between a seller and a buyer. It is also ensuring one thing, that yes, the nature wins over here, because all our deals cannot be just dependent on seller and buyers, and we have to incorporate the surroundings in all our deals going forward. That's what this probably session will bring it out on the table. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. On cooling as a service, as long as a cooling as a service provider is taking care of all things related to cooling as a single provider, is taking operational accountability, providing efficiency guarantee, and ideally providing a fully funded solution also, that is cooling as a service. But with regards to the specific business model, there are different business models with respect to different scopes that can be taken by cooling as a service provider. So there is a whole spectrum of business models in cooling as a service. At one end of the spectrum is just an energy efficiency contract, say ESCO providers. As long as they are taking care of efficiency guarantee for cooling equipment, that also can be considered a cooling as a service. Then there are slightly more long-term contracts in which cooling equipment is owned by companies. So we call it building level cooling as a service or campus level cooling as a service. And at the other extreme end of the spectrum is district cooling utility, in which cooling becomes just like a utility. As an individual building user, building owner, just like I'm not installing my own power plant or my own water treatment plants for one single building or one gas distribution. I'm simply taking a connection from the local DISCOM or local JAL board or the piped gas distribution who is licensed to provide that service in my area. Similar way, I simply take a chilled water connection from a district cooling provider and pay monthly tariffs, a fixed tariff as well as consumption-based tariff. So this is, I would say, the gold standard. While there is a wide spectrum of different business models in cooling as a service, district cooling remains at one end of the spectrum, in which these efficiency guarantees and operational commitments can be for as long as 55 years period. 55 to 60-year contracts is what what already exists in various of our projects. Thanks.
Hi. Cooling as a service, we see cooling only as a part of the medium, but cooling and water cannot be separated, because cooling requires water if you want high efficiency cooling. So cooling and water has a relation. So we also see use of recycled water for energy efficiency, because we see water cooled system will have a high energy efficiency, so that will reduce the peak demand during the peak hours. So cooling and water have a relations. So if utility is given along with cooling as a service with all the whatever previous model explained, along with water, that will serve as a total purpose for the end users, customer inside. And since water is a very important aspect when you discuss cooling, water treatment, everything put together. So if these two combines, then it gives a complete value addition to the customers. That is what we feel. It should be a total combination of cooling and water as a solutions. Even use of recycled water which improves the efficiency of the system.
Right. Good morning, everyone. I agree to the panelists on a lot of things, but I also want to give a slightly different perspective about cooling as a service. District cooling, put a cluster of buildings together, set up a central plant, flow water into all the buildings. I think that's a very common approach. I mean, that's the most needed approach also, 60 years of commitment there. Why don't we look at retrofits? As an OEM, Carrier is sitting on an installed base of, let's say, about 20,000 chillers. Numbers may be here and there. I just want to kind of, drive across a point. Put all the other OEMs together, there's a huge installed base of chillers. That are more than 10 to 15 years old. Anything greater than 5 years, the technology changes, so you have a great retrofit opportunity there. So what is the expectation? We go back, do digital modernization, look at these buildings, get into the plant room, do an energy audit, and come back with an energy conservation measure, set up a bunch of ECMs to basically do a whole building retrofit of the plant room alone. So that's where cooling as a service comes in as a very handy tool, right? I mean, we invite a core CAS operator, let them into the building and, say that, okay, we do a retrofit, a complete plant room retrofit, and this is the energy savings, and offset the CAS commitment through energy savings. So that's a terrific model, right? I mean, because we have these pressures on reduction of scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, and plant room happens to be contributing to about 50% of scope 2 emissions in most buildings. Right, when we get into doing this, I think this is a low-hanging fruit to me. Cooling as a service by definition may not be exactly what I'm saying. District cooling is probably a better definition, but this approach towards cooling as a service will not just help address those large chiller plant issues, but also look at light commercial products. We can look at inverter technology coming in faster. We can look at, on the ductable units, we can look at VRF being adopted faster. Variable refrigerant flow systems. So that's my take. As we progress in the conversation, maybe we'll add more points to it, but that's where we are.
Thank you. Thank you. I think there's a very wide perspectives on this, on cooling as a service, but the benefits are agreeable to all. There are several benefits which have been listed out by all the panelists, and if there are so many benefits, starting from maybe Mr. Manjunath, there are so many benefits to it, but still the traditional style of the sale, the OEM, HVAC OEM has been typically sales, service, warranties kind of thing. So what internal shift do you see in terms of not only organization, but also technical and commercial aspects that the OEMs need to follow so that they can also enter into this entire space of performance-based contracting?
That's a very good question for an OEM to address. Right? We are not a core CAS operator. We are not in that space at all. But what are we? We are actually getting ready to operate in the CAS space through partnerships. If you ask me to define an OEM's role today, we are a technical enabler, technical partner there, digital integrator, performance guarantor, and probably a retrofit enabler. Okay, I'll put our role as an OEM in these 4 categories. And to your point, I think largely we have looked at equipment supply as transactional, right? We just give a chiller and then we say we have 2-3 years of commitment in terms of AMCs, and if the customer is interested in extending that commitment, then we go beyond that. But ideally, in today's scenario, with CAS being there around for almost a decade and now become more actively the need of the hour. What we are doing is we have made our assets primarily energy efficient, and that goes without saying. We are making up chillers probably have higher capacity, operate on HT for enabling district cooling operations. And more importantly, what we're doing is we are making our equipment smart assets. They're able to seamlessly communicate with the outside world with the IoT platforms, so that anything to do with measurement verification, digital monitoring, and in fact, by putting embedded AI, in places where we put chiller plant optimizer, we're able to take autonomous decisions. The chiller plant optimizer is able to reset the chilled water leaving temperature, maybe increase or decrease the flow, operate more number of cooling towers or pumps as the need may be. So what we're doing is we are moving away from a transactional kind of arrangement to more outcome oriented now. Having said that, we are also creating our own platforms. Now, if a CAS operator or an energy as a service operator wanted a platform to look at a digital twin, we are ready with that. Our equipment, or we may have a platform which is ready called Abound HVAC Performance. I'm talking about what we have developed in-house, which is actually a digital twin and can communicate with the CAS operators, cloud services, seamlessly integrates with it. and look at, again, when we're looking at district cooling as a service models, it cannot be restricted to one model, one make. It has to be brand agnostic, product agnostic. Our platforms, which is more of physics-based models, basically can look at 27 different asset categories that can get into a building. Anything that's got energy consumption associated with it, anything that's got moving parts associated with it, can all seamlessly communicate to the IoT platform today. So that's the shift that we are seeing. We're looking at outcome-based solutions. We're looking at embedded AI. We're looking at AI on the cloud and making assets smart. Bottom line, AHP can actually look at digitally monitoring the chillers, giving digital warranty. What are we doing there? We are reducing scope 1 and scope 3 emission. We don't have to dispatch a technical team to address a chiller issue now today, equipment issue. We just have to kind of hook it on remotely and then able to reduce. It's tailpipe emission reduction, right? Scope 3 emission reduction clearly there. And API, gives that flexibility in terms of predicting what can happen in the future on a chiller that is connected on a platform like this one. So there's a paradigm shift from transactional to being outcome oriented. I would say that in the end.
Wonderful. I think that's very well said, that shift is actually needed. But maybe to Mr. Babu, when we talk about cooling and we also talk about CAS, we have seen, how the traditional equipment and OEM wants to operate. But do you see, the role of, let's say, hybrid solutions into this? Can hybrid solution be a game changer for CAS? Can they reduce or can they actually contribute a lot more than we are thinking about?
Yeah. What we think is hybrid solutions or tri-generation or poly-generation will be the key for energy efficiency, because if you completely depends on only electric-based solutions for the cooling as service, so we may not able to reduce the demand for electricity. So tri-generation or poly-generation solutions, hybrid solution can effectively give very good energy efficiency coupled with recycled water solutions, because if you want to give cooling using water cooled solutions, because currently all the buildings, commercials, everything, everywhere we talk about air cooled. The moment you say air cooled during the peak demand, the efficiencies are so poor. The IKWs are 1.5 kilowatt per TR goes very high. So the moment you shift to water cooled system, the demand for water comes up. But there are now solutions available. What we think is use of STP treated water for cooling tower. So recycled water. So water cooled solutions, it's not only the big district cooling plants, even 1000 TR, 2000 TR, small size plants can be converted into centralized systems with complete poly generation using, because whatever small needs of heating requirements for customers, hot water and also power and cooling on water. If you combine these 4 utilities together, we can achieve both energy efficiency and also sustainability goals. Sustainability goals is not only energy efficiency, it also on water conservation. So, and use of recycled water. So all the three goals can be achieved if you combine these, but it doesn't come under cooling as service, but if you combine utilities, since cooling is a major part, so we can cover these 4 utilities and then give a complete solution to even large district plants also, even for a smaller district, and especially for small industrial clusters. It can be a big utility plant supplying both steam, water, chilled water and power and also hot water. These 4 utilities can be given if you are able to centrally generate and distribute. This will reduce the total energy demand and also achieve our sustainability goals. That is what.
Thank you. Mr. Asim, I mean, we have learned about the traditional approach. We also understood about the hybrid solution. District cooling is also not in kind technology and is quite prevalent in some of the matured markets like Southeast Asian countries and the Middle East. We understand that there are positives, there are barriers to district cooling, but I mean, do you really see district cooling as a project which can mitigate the risk that the bankers usually have, or why is it not picking up in India?
Sure, Piyush. So first of all, see, district cooling is happening in India. if you talk about district cooling as a mechanism to provide thermal comfort, it is already happening in India. Many airports, many universities, many office campuses, if you see, it is already happening. Rather than each building having its own cooling plant, there is usually a central plant, if not at a wide campus level, at least say 3-4 buildings getting served from one single plant. That is already happening. What is not happening is a merchant model based district cooling, because say if you talk about design, any developer would think that, okay, what is new in it? I can also do it. And it is very small component of the overall project cost in a development. So usually they prefer to keep critical infrastructure with themselves and they do it. But the problem is in the maintenance part. So that long-term commitment, operational accountability, energy commitment, etc., is not someone is not able to provide. But talking about whether it can be done or not in a merchant model, yes, definitely it can be done. Definitely the projects can be bankable, even the existing concessions that we have seen in India. There is a lot of interest from, say, financial institutions to lend to these projects. While government projects, see, again, there could be two different types of projects. In one project, master developer could be the only off-taker. And there could be projects where there is a portfolio of customers. So with proper off-take guarantees in place, if not for the entire project, at least for the phase 1. And then on, there could be modular expansion. So with proper offtake guarantee in place, at least for phase 1, and with proper payment recovery mechanisms in place, either through disconnection rights or through various other mechanisms. If the counterparty is not so creditworthy, there could be escrow mechanisms to recover our payments. So definitely there have been so many precedents where these projects are bankable, and there is so much interest from financial institutions to lend to this. So it's all about finding the right path, the right business model where both parties aligned, and the original objectives of efficiency, commitment, sustainability get taken care of.
Thank you, Aseem. I think one of the key factors of CAS, and in fact you mentioned about district cooling, is also the efficiency of the system and how it could be monitored. So to Mr. Amit, so when we talk about CAS model, the system efficiency is paramount. So how do you see the role of digital monitoring, the optimization of the pumping systems and so on contributes to this entire model?
I'll just add to my panelists what they have added basically in terms of what CAS has been and what district cooling. We'll just try to integrate both of them because previously you used to think about, let's say, just a rotary equipment, a pump basically is a mechanical component. Then we understood it's more of an electromechanical component where the motor plays an important role. So it's not just the pump efficiency, it has to be the motor efficiency also to make the complete pump a more efficient equipment. Then we understood that it's not the limit over there, and we have to integrate electronics with those motors. So we are now talking about VFDs with it to improve the efficiency. Now going forward, we understand that it is not just about mechanical, electrical and electronics. We have to integrate IT with it to understand, because data is king. Unless until we have the data, I believe Arjun will talk a lot about data because that's their real strength ultimately. And ESCO model totally, or even the CAS model we are talking about, depends on data. Wherever we are seeing ultimately in comparison to what we are, what is our current expenditure and what we can make it in future, that's where the business model lies in ultimately. Cooling as a service model. So in terms of this, it is all about integrating not just an equipment efficiency, it is about the complete plant room efficiency and operating in the best efficiency mode. Now the second thing is that, let's say if we are talking about 30 buildings operating on their own, are we literally having 30 operators who are well trained to operate it over 5 long years in the most efficient manner? That's challenging right now. Plus, is it easy for a single vendor to do that? We have seen that they are more experienced and they are doing it. Now, second thing is that since it's a business model for them, it's not just like I've purchased it for my building and I can spend more also. It's a business model. I have to bring out more from this business. I have to operate it at a better efficiency for a longer time. That's where I even got the words from seeing that in a district cooling model, people even talk about giving it till 55 years. Whereas if we are buying it for our own building, we look at the future of around 15 years, 20 years at max. That's where we have to look at the more viability and even the scaling up. Ultimately, that's where it will bring in more sustainability also. And it will all happen when we have data, and that will ultimately come in when we are able to monitor the complete expenditures of ours in terms of energy that we are using right now.
Thank you. Mr. Arjun, from a user's perspective, I think long-term performance is the key. So what are the key factors, in terms of contractual obligations that you see are important for CAS, maybe from an institutional or a commercial point of view?
Great question. So in a cooling as a service contract in the customer organization, you're going to hit so many different stakeholders. You maybe start with the top management, then you have to go to procurement, projects, design. Then, of course, the building itself or the factory itself is going to go into operations. So then you have to deal with the operations team. So first thing you have to keep in mind is that you have many customers in one customer. Many customers. And every role in the customer has different priorities. So, for example, the projects team doesn't care about long-term performance. They don't care. They want the project to be done in time and in quality and in close coordination with the rest of the services. So I think it's overly simplistic to say that the customer cares about long-term performance, because the customer is many customers in one. So they care about many different things. And as a cooling as a service provider, you have to be extremely sensitive to the customer and in tune with their requirements and needs. And your own organization has to very closely mirror the customer organization. So if your operations people are dealing with the projects people in the customer side, you're done. If your projects people are dealing with the operators, you're again done. So in a CAS contract, to be successful, you have to, I think the social engineering is equally important as the technical engineering and the financial engineering. So there's all different aspects. Social aspect is equally important, and the company has to talk the language of the customer at the stage of the project. I think that really impacts the success or failure of a project. How clearly you have articulated and taken the customer along, what have you understood about what they need, what they don't need, right? And sometimes if you look at it from an operations team's perspective, I'll give you an example. We are doing one cooling as a service project. Project stage went pretty smoothly. It's done. Now the CEO of the organization comes, and then they say, why do I have such a big bill for cooling? Because typically, the projects and procurement have taken care of the capex, and the operations is only paying for energy and O&M. Now the operator is paying for energy, O&M, and infrastructure, right? Obviously they're paying the capex over time as well. So if you don't manage that communication really well, and kind of take the customer along in the journey, you really screw it up. So I think your question is what is important for success, customer side. I think lot of focus on making sure the customer organization is aligned and they are talking to each other, and the reason for why this is a good deal for the customer percolates across all the stages and all key people in the customer organization.
And I'll add to what Arjun said. Based on our experience, the same process that you mentioned may have to be done again and again with the same customer also, because there are, like, within one customer there are many customers. Those customers may also keep changing. So there's a new person heading the asset management, heading the operations, or heading the project management, or let's say CFO managing the budgets for that particular building. You may have to explain everything again, because that person would come with a different mindset, and it's a new concept. Obviously it's a new business model. So that same education part has to be done again and again also with the same customer sometimes.
Digitization could be a good answer to all of this, right? The records are there. There's a footprint left behind.
Yeah, but the communication part. For example, just like Arjun mentioned, that initially cooling just used to be seen as only the operational cost, but now the infrastructure cost is also included, but being compared with the earlier only operational cost. So that communication part is very.
I would just like to add few more points that right now it's still a new concept for people to sunk in. And that's where the challenge is, because there are 50 minds thinking 15 different ways. So that's the biggest challenge. Once we start making it a very regular concept for people, and there are people who adopt it and they'll ultimately become the word of mouth, then the things will be more easy for people to sunk in ultimately.
Thank you. I think wonderful examples, to understand this better. And I think Mr. Amit has left it as at a very good junction, when he mentioned that this is a new concept and probably there are many barriers to it. So probably we'll take a pause over here and we try to understand from the audience perspective, what are the barriers, what is holding back the CAS model in India. So there will be a QR on the screen. Yep. So what is holding back the cooling as a service in India? And you will have 5 options when you scan this QR code. So please rank the barrier based on your understanding. 1 is the most critical barrier, and 5 is equal to least critical. Are we done? Okay. So we have all the barriers with us, and maybe let's take this one by one. And since I have already got a note that 15 minutes to go from the organizers, we'll try to keep it short and very precise. So the first one is limited awareness and demand from building owners and developers. So maybe how do you see that the awareness could be raised, number one, and also the demand could be created? Is there something, a mechanism, let's say a demand aggregation model, can it work?
Yeah, of course, can work. I think I would say one very notable positive development in this regard is something that HCL has started called Climate Force something. They've got like a 50 crore 5-year program or 3-year program where they are already engaging with lots of building owners, and they are bringing them into this concept of cooling as a service. And they are saying that we'll give 10-20% grant if you go for cooling as a service. I think that's the most promising development that I have seen. Because the moment, you have to deal with perception. I mean, cooling as a service has a lot of value. Most of the value may come from energy efficiency. But from a customer's perspective, if they say grant is coming, then automatically there's a demand. Whether it's energy efficiency is coming or not is less important. But grant is coming, even if it's only 10%, grant is coming. Very good. Independent third-party verification. So this HCL Climate Force, I would say, is one of the best. They have put in demand aggregation plus a grant component plus independent third-party verification of the benefits to the customer. So these 3 things they have done, and it's a sizable amount that they've put together and pulled together. And they've got very good decision makers from good companies on the table. So I think that sort of program is super promising. Now, in that program, if you add participation of Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Ministry of Power, that would make it even better because it would be larger, right? This is 50 crores, maybe few owners that are known to the HCL team, etc. But I think fundamentally that's a really amazing program, and I encourage everybody to check it out.
So maybe we just change the format a bit since we have lesser time. So we have the ranking of all the barriers, and probably I'll just throw the questions to all the panelists, and you can just answer. So anyone else wants to contribute to this awareness and demand aggregation thing?
I'll just add to this that awareness we can create, but there is one thing that's still lacking. People will take call based on their budgets and other things. We have to calculate the demand basically and make it big for people to fear about taking calls in that case. Once that start happening, let's say we talk about the feasibility of district cooling around 30,000 tons of refrigerant and above. When these calculation will happen and we'll see more pockets being calculated like this, and we don't leave it to the individual developers to take call, then people will start going to the cooling as service model because it's a big capacity now where they'll not take the call in their hand. And that's where we can bring in the policies as well to talk about the capping on the IKW per tier. That's what my friend talked about. Because if we give the power to everyone, we'll not be able to monitor that at what level everyone is operating. That's where when we'll operate it at a single point and we'll start monitoring it through policies, and we can even drive these policies at that particular level. That's where we'll get the energy fair, and that's when the actual word of mouth will start spreading. That's when we'll ultimately see the awareness getting spread out.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Just quickly building on to it, I want to comment a couple of points that appeared on the screen just now. First one is on the awareness aspect, right? Like it or not, we are becoming a subscription economy, right? It started with SaaS, software as a service. Then, we looked at PaaS, platform as a service. Now, cooling as a service, us being the second largest industry globally as per some data points, I think it's a natural way of, taking that on with us. And one of these EV manufacturers coming with a battery as a service model, right? I think awareness, it's not there to your point, but I think we can quickly build onto that awareness. That's a given. The other thing is, OEMs not ready I think it got the lowest scores for whatever reasons. Now, I just want to today confidently say that as OEMs, we are prepared for the future that we are going to build together as far as the cooling as a service is concerned. We are ready. I mentioned it earlier, but I think I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Another important point is, currently most of the building owners, since cooling is ambient related, so they don't even know the current cost of OPEX ownership also. To increase the awareness, like the retrofit model for small, the cooling, so it will spread the message also, and measurement and verifications of existing large size buildings to increase, so your installed capacity is X and your OPEX supposed to be Y, but it is around 1.5 Y. With the energy efficiency current system, so you can reach around 40-50% of potential of OPEX. So the awareness is lacking because the people talk about only total cost of ownership without understanding much. So if you are able to provide the measurement and verification to the existing building owners and create, and there are a lot of energy auditing systems, even BE is energy auditors. But energy auditors, people feel it is for industry. Even for large size commercial building, if you do energy audit, and that will also increase the awareness. The measurement and verification and conveying the message to the financial guy who is cutting the bill. So will improve the awareness, and it will, like he said, we are bound to go for subscription model. It will make the cooling as service faster.
I think on the awareness part, two aspects. One is from siloed approach to a systems thinking approach, and the other is from an upfront cost or a per month or a per year cost to a life cycle cost approach. So these two things we need, and the onus is onto the industry also, to all of us as well, to have the top management buy-in. So we need to work top down as well as bottom up to ensure that there is not so much of resistance from the people on ground. Plus, there has to be a management buy-in, like you mentioned that finance guy has to confirm that there is value in it. On the demand aggregation side, yes, certainly it helps in cases where some industry player, for example, Tabreed, us, we may not be able to do projects which may be say 500 tons, 1000 tons. But if there is an aggregation of demand, various buildings put together, if they make say 10,000 tons and above, then definitely we can get into a very robust contract structure. So this also opens up the market. So that also has value. Thank you.
Thank you. The second barrier was high perceived risk for financiers and limited lender confidence. Anyone? Maybe just we'll take two opinions from the panel.
Yeah, so I just want to kind of maybe build on to it, because today what we don't have, I think Babu also mentioned that M&V is an issue, right? Measurement and verification using standards that are prescribed by maybe a Bureau of Energy Efficiency, giving a standard on that. So that's going to be useful because it has to be one common template referred by everyone in the country, right? I mean, it can't be like defined on a case-to-case basis. So we are moving away from that IKW per TR, IPLV, NPLV, SPLV standards and all that. This is basically benchmarking and working towards improvement of energy efficiency and giving those guaranteed energy savings contracts. So I think the need of the hour is probably a standard IMVP guideline on measurement verification, which is globally accepted and prevalent in India. The other thing is, from an OEM perspective, our contracts are right now written to take care of, let's say, MTTR, mean time taken for restoration, right? We guarantee about 99% readiness of assets and all that. So that's not going to work anymore. We clearly understand that, because when we're working with a CAS operator or an energy as a service operator, we're looking at contracts which probably have 10, 15 years guidelines and a buy-in, for that long a period. And we'll also have to factor in something like there is going to be a deterioration in the performance of the assets, right? Every year we factor about 1%. So the contract, if you're writing a contract, a watertight contract for 15 years period, it should also look at, how this has to be factored. Energy efficiency is going to drop over a period of time with some of the assets having a lot of moving parts and the gas and other things changing over a period of time. So these two as standards coming in from a government body or the industry agreeing to follow a common standard would be an ideal solution to this, is what I feel. Yeah.
Thank you.
On bankability and lenders' confidence side, I would say it's not rocket science and it's not specific to HVAC. It's very simple. What makes sense, whether someone is able to recover its money or not. So same happened with renewables also. Till the time there was no SECI, people were not ready to sign contracts with discoms, right, which had poor creditworthiness. The moment there is some intermediary where they were able to ensure the payment security mechanism, etc., it ramped up like anything. So similar thing applies everywhere. So I would say it's not specific to HVAC or it's not specific to any particular sector. As long as the business model makes sense, and which inherently makes sense because there is value in it. Mm-hmm. We are generating some value by reducing the energy waste. So that way, I think it makes sense, and this wouldn't really be a barrier as long as you have good counterparties, you have reasonable commercial sense making business model.
Thank you.
I'll just add to this that I still would like to link this to lack of awareness rather than this looked at as a holistic point, because people are still not aware of this as a business model existing in market. And once people are aware of it, then they'll see that it's actually not a barrier in terms of the finances managing and other things.
Thank you. I think the third point was lack of standardized contracts, performance matrix, which you already covered, yes. The next point was regulatory and policy uncertainties. And I think I would just want to add a part to it. So first, do you see that there is a need for regulatory or some sort of regulation in this, or do you see that market itself will, create that demand and make things more viable? How do you see this?
Even for solar PV, currently, even solar PV, even many of the states also offer some of the grants. So we feel if there is any, like someone is mentioned, so even if it is 5 to 10%, so motivation from grant, so this kind of policy framework will definitely spread the awareness and try to move away from the ownership to the caste model. And also we need, as an industry or on some of the bodies, we need to also talk to various agencies in government, benefits of caste model in overall reducing the peak demand. So that need to be convinced by the government. If we move away from this model, will, as a country, the overall electricity demand will come down. If as a group we are able to communicate to the respective people, then both the things can happen. Even market awareness also will increase, and government also will tend to give the grant if they feel it is going to help overall as country.
I'll just say that normally we have seen that policies are not made or government doesn't get involved in when it's a niche market. Right now it's a niche market. Policies will be made and government will definitely step in when it becomes a mass market. And we have bigger suppliers and bigger contracts getting transact. So still, it's probably a time when government should start looking at it, and probably around 3 or 4 years or 5 years down the line, they should make it a mandate or come in with stronger policies. But I don't think so that they'll be able to do it immediately because it's still a niche market.
Thank you. And I think the last question on technology readiness has already been answered. So here we take we again take a pause and probably the last round of audience poll. So there will be a QR on the screen soon to understand your perspective. What would be the enablers for large-scale adoption of cooling as a service in India, and how the intervention needs to be prioritized? Again, 1 is on the highest level of the priority, and 4 being maybe at a later stage. Great. So we have all the 4 priorities, starting with aggregation of cooling demand, then standardized CAS contracts, integrating it into building procurements and building codes, and last one is credit risk guarantees. So maybe one last, understanding and keeping in mind all these 4 points, your last view on these, maybe just 2 minutes each, starting with Arjun.
Yeah, I think it's very clear. Like everybody's ready to deliver cash. Earlier, it was like people don't know what it is. People don't know how to deliver it. I think there's a lot of companies now who are ready to deliver. And the finance is clearly not a bottleneck. We should stop talking about finance. Technology is not a bottleneck. The only thing that matters is demand. So 100% focus on demand. That's it.
We can clearly see that. On top, ultimately, we see aggregation of cooling demand, and that's where the country is leading towards. That's basically district cooling is what we are seeing. That's where the viability for even the operators or the OEMs who are working as a cooling as a service model will come in, because that's where it will be a more efficient system. That's what they'll be able to create. That's where ultimately it will be beneficial for the end customers also, because over there they'll be able to see the delta coming in. So all put together, ultimately, even the products that we are buying or the products that are getting used, pumps, chillers and other things, we'll be talking about using more efficient equipments over there, because the capacity once increases, the equipments also becomes more efficient ultimately. So all put together, I see that we are definitely driving towards a district cooling along with cooling as a service model. That's where the integration of 2 will ultimately help us in the growth and improvisation of ultimately or reduction of the CO2 that we are talking about.
I think it's not a question of this or that, or it's not a question of prioritize. I think we have to work with all things in parallel, foremost obviously being creation of demand, and plus also doing away or at least reducing the adverse regulatory situations, for example, GST related, SEZ, non-SEZ related, etc. So I think all of this has to be done in parallel, awareness and demand being the first and foremost.
Yeah, I do agree that all of this has to be done in parallel, but aggregation of cooling demand is one of the critical factors. And also in district cooling, we feel both, it's not only district cooling, is large size district cooling. So the size of the district cooling should be a smaller size, and bigger size will also play a major role in promoting cash as service.
I totally agree with the comments there. Aggregation of cooling demand is primary, but point 2 and 3 are also important. If you ask me, really, standardization. I spoke about a few other standards getting developed, but one standard that we probably missed during the conversation is the data security issue, right? Digital monitoring, we need to have a standard. We need to have a policy document coming in there. And also where the data gets stored, because if you have to build a data tunnel between the end user and a central monitoring station, it should be seamlessly possible. We need to be in a position to whitelist an URL and stream all the data to the cloud platforms, do all those analytics, and then make it autonomous to kind of bring it back and address that. So that's one of the policy requirements that I would suggest, it's going to kind of improve the demand, because there is confidence in how we are using the data, what we're doing with the data, and how it's impacting them in terms of outcomes. So, I would like to add that as one of the comments that has been,
Thank you. I think wonderful discussions, and we all agree that, and probably Arjun actually coined the 4 key, terms very rightly at the start. Quality, convenience, efficient, and reliability. So that really defines the CAS model. Going forward, it is sustainable. Maybe district cooling system also gives a very good example of CAS model, but it is mostly relevant in the current context to the greenfield projects, but maybe in the future we can have more and more projects even in the retrofits. But at present, I think the retrofit could maybe understood, and the most of the sense could be actually derived from not let's say a truly district cooling system, but cooling as a service in general terms, using the other equipment and so on. And Mr. Manjunath also gave a very good example where the cash commitment could be actually offset with the savings that are accrued over a period of time. IoT could be integrated into the system to have more and more reliability, the data, and then the policies also could actually be data driven and so on. Hybrid solution, Mr. Babu gave a very good example of how the system should be designed. A bigger and larger utility where we have hybrid systems which is actually generating heating, cooling, electricity simultaneously. That makes more sense in the current context. And yes, from the audience poll and the discussion in the panel, we understand that, of course, demand and awareness are the key criteria. And once we have a certain level of demand and certain level of projects on ground and the data to substantiate it, then the policy will also follow, and then further larger scale upscaling could be, happen. So with this, I think I would like to thank the audience for their engagement, and thank you very much to the panelists for your very detailed insights on the topic. And with this, I hand it over back to the organizers.
Thank you to our panelists for such an insightful session and for shifting our narrative of cooling from ownership to performance. Now, I would like to request our panelists to come forward for a group photograph, please.
So hello everyone. Myself Gaurav, and I'm an undergrad student from DC and currently associated with Zomato. And so my question is somewhat related to the business model associated with SaaS. Sir, unlike the another consumable utility commodities like electricity and water, which are charged based on unit consumed, sir, don't you think that cooling is somewhat different, because cooling is related with thermal comfort? Unlike water and electricity, it can't be consumed willingly, more or less. Like person next to me doesn't want extra thermal comfort than me. So, Asim sir, is it not more a bankable option to design first based on a comfort band, like design X space based on the comfort band of that space, and then charge based on that. So I think that would be a more bankable option.
There are ways to measure supply of thermal energy as well. So there are BTU meters through which we can measure how much TRH, refrigeration ton hours, have been delivered. So that way, I think it can be very well. It is already very well standardized, and it's an established business model. Within one space, I think in any case, one user is not paying separate his or her own share, and someone else sitting beside me is paying his or her own share of consumption of thermal comfort. So I think it's at the space level. Yeah.
I just want to kind of build on to that. What is cooling? It's actually removing heat from the conditioned space, right? So in that process, from what is delivered as TRH, it can be billed as electricity. Per TRH, let's say I charge about 15 rupees per TRH to a certain committed leaving chill water temperature, because a certain leaving chill water temperature is required to remove that heat from the conditioned space. The other side of it is the upstream adoption, managing the airflow, increasing or decreasing the temperatures at various zones, using VAVs, using HUs, adding filtration, and all that is upstream adoption. So cooling as a service, to the point that at the BTU meter level, it stops, maybe a TRH calculation is done and a bill is handed out. Everything you mentioned is upstream, or downstream rather. Yeah. High side, low side. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Ravneek. I'm from Habitat India. So I'm a strong believer in energy efficiency and cooling. That's what our focus has been for net zero building. So a simple question: my interaction with private real estate developers. I think huge capacity building is required for them to understand the model. So it's a legacy ecosystem you're addressing, because any large developer is in the business for about 4 to 5 decades. So the ecosystem, the supply chains, the influencers, and the decision makers are in a different mode. So innovation across the board for a very high value and very integral asset for their real estate development needs a lot of capacity building, which basically is a way to influence. So I personally felt that behavior change is a huge issue, especially with the key decision makers, which are backed by the MEP teams. So there are gaps within the organization which needs to be answered, and that can happen over a period of time. But that's what my experience has been. And when it comes to innovation, this industry lags behind. So they have made huge progress in terms of beautiful clubhouses, luxury is coming in. But when it comes to integral decision making, which calls for the asset to basically be looking at an ab initio level, at a green field, then it's a big challenge. So what has been your experience in, working with these developers?
I think you're 100% right. I think with developers, there's a couple of issues you rightly brought out. One is that there's a difference between the MEP teams and the owners. Huge dissonances there. Huge. Owners are like, great, I don't have to put money. And MEP teams are like, hello, don't take my control away. And, 100 other things are there tied to that. So I think that's absolutely correct. It takes a lot of effort. And honestly, there's another big problem with developers, which is economic incentive is not there to reduce energy bills because it's a pass through to the tenants. So actually, they don't really care. We have pretty much taken a decision to prioritize our business development efforts towards sectors where the owner is the same as the operator and is the same as the person who pays the bill. Real estate, obviously big volume, it looks like, oh my God, such a good market. But at the end of the day, I think only Asim can answer because he's got a customer as a real estate developer. I don't think any of us other people have a customer who's a real estate developer in a cooling as a service contract. I have pretty much given up my business development efforts in that sector right now. I don't see that uptake. Other sectors definitely. But maybe Asim, you are the best position.
Arjun is right that again, the, one gap is that whether the decision maker is getting benefited from the energy savings or not. So there are two types of models. No, in some cases there is a pass through. In some case there is a fixed formula. So in which the real estate developer gets benefit. And then there are third situations where the developer just realizes the benefit of it and wants to do it for the sustainability part and for the end user savings part as well. And this is not specific, this paradox is not specific to only commercial office spaces. Even in case of hotels, we have seen the owner is different and operator of the hotel is different. While operator would want to save and do it, but the decision of selling the cooling assets, etc., lies with the owner of the hotel. So so it's not specific to only commercial spaces. It's also applicable in other real estate segments. But yes, I mean, ultimately you have to find a way, try convince that, it's not just and ultimately end user savings also benefit the real estate developer, right? I mean, we have seen in our existing project, when they were trying to, because it was still in the nascent stage and trying to lease out to various parties, when Google's, IBM's used to visit, then having a plant being managed by a third-party utility, professional utility, used to be a big plus point for the leasing team of the developer, which they used to show to their prospective clients. So there are many benefits. Even end-user benefit is a benefit to the developer also.
I think we could not take the audience question because of interest of time. We actually overrun the time allocated to us. So we request you to just stop the questions for the time being, and the panelists are still here. Maybe outside during the tea, coffee breaks or something, you can just discuss this bilaterally. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Now please come forward. Thank you. So we'll now take a 20-minute networking break, and I'll request everyone to please be back in the hall by 11:25 for starting our next session. Thank you.